Accused child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein was denied bail today. A judge ruled he will remain in jail until his trial, citing the danger Epstein poses to others in the community and saying the bail package was, quote, irretrievably inadequate. Donald Trump sure to continue to face questions about his relationship with Epstein, a relationship that was visibly chummy, as this video of them in 1992 unearthed by MSNBC illustrates. Washington Post writes of this period in Donald Trump's life today, quote, Trump's interactions with women at the Mar-a-Lago party, welcome or not, provide visual evidence of the kind of behavior he would later brag about in a 2005 Access Hollywood recording that surfaced at the end of the presidential campaign, that he could grab women and kiss women because he was a celebrity. 16 women have publicly accused Trump of sexual misconduct over the past several decades, including a former magazine columnist who went public last month with her claim that Trump assaulted her in a department store dressing room around 1995. He has denied all the allegations. Paul, Donna, and the table are back. Donna, your thoughts about this intersection and what Epstein and that video and these moments, however meaningful or meaningless they were to Donald Trump, they do, as they say, put him in the room.
Well, and Donald Trump's claims that he had this sort of distant relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, we can see with our own eyes and hear with our ears that that is simply not true. And I think that, you know, by the time the investigators sort through all the documents and the technology that are in the possession of Jeffrey Epstein, we are going to come to learn a lot more about the real relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
Paul Butler, I wonder, just from a law enforcement or from the standpoint of someone building their case or strengthening their case against Epstein, how far back does that investigation go and how many associates could get swept up?
They're going to try to talk to anybody who might have any kind of incriminating evidence against Epstein. It's clear from the case that they made today in court. The Southern District prosecutors think this is a bad dude. They denied bail because they said he's a clear and present danger right now to both the accusers and to potential victims. Two of the victims testified that if Epstein was released on bail, they wouldn't feel safe. And the judge also thought that he was a flight risk because he had all this diamonds. He had diamonds in his safe. He had a fake passport, and he's got considerable access. So if he wants to try to flee, he has that mansion in Paris and 2 private planes.
Who has 2 private planes? That's for another day. I want to two questions for you and you, John, too. I want you to jump in on this. So the man who Paul Butler, I think, accurately describes as a bad dude, as someone Trump described as, quote, a terrific guy. And the cameras were in there at Donald Trump's request.
Right.
Donald Trump requested that party and the guests at the party be filmed by NBC News. So Donald Trump, who's a showman, who's constantly producing, wanted to produce TV footage in which he appeared with Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the interview that was part of that taping.
So who are your friends and who are your enemies?
Well, I've learned a lot, I have to tell you. I mean, part of the book, I'm going to be writing a book. I don't know why I'm even on the show, except we want to get you good ratings. I said to Faith, we're going to get you some major ratings. And you're going to get big ratings.
Tell the rest of the story, though.
I know.
I saw you at the Celebrity Chef dinner here in New York.
And what a kiss.
You kissed me on the lips in front of the paparazzi, and I said, that'll cost you. I'm booking you on the show.
I know, that's good.
True story, correct?
The kiss was so good, and it was so open and nice. She is a fabulous woman. And
so open and nice.
And her husband is a handsome devil, I'll tell you. He's a good guy. But I think he had his back turned at the time. But, so we had a good time.
This doesn't happen very often, but I have no words. Someone talk.
Well, I want to say this about this tape, because this is key about why this really damages Trump and what it says about him, right? Harvey Harvey Weinstein was in the movie business. You may have had to deal with him because you were in the movie business. It didn't mean you were involved in his abuse. R. Kelly was a musician. You may have had to deal with him for music reasons. You didn't have to be involved in his behavior. But most people don't even know what Jeffrey Epstein did. So if you were hanging out with this guy, it was for this kind of behavior. It was because you wanted to produce and be in the kinds of parties and the inappropriate behavior that he was involved with. That's why this is so damaging to Trump. He can't come up with any other reason to socialize with him except for being involved in his nonsense.
Well, and here, to me, in that New York Times story that you cited earlier, is the paragraph that I find so interesting and damning is the one that talks about the party that the NBC shot. And then it says it took place the same year that Mr. Trump hosted a more private affair with Mr. Epstein in Mar-a-Lago without cameras rolling. At that get-together, Mr. Trump and Mr. Epstein were the only male guests and had more than 24, quote, calendar girls flown in to provide them with entertainment. So, a party with those two guys at Donald Trump's private club with 24 calendar girls, in quotes in the Times, I add the quotes there, flown in to entertain them. I mean, to Jason's point, what does that suggest? It suggests exactly what you're talking about and what the nature of the relationship was between the two of them. And that is even before we start to have a much more uncomfortable conversation for another day about the accusations that have been leveled about Donald Trump committing sex crimes at Jeffrey Epstein's premises and the Jane Doe lawsuit that should be talked about later.
16 women have credibly accused Donald Trump of everything from sexual assault to rape.
Yeah. The denial of bail, I'll be really quick, is significant because that will now put Trump in jeopardy because Epstein could turn state's witness and start talking about all those people in the black books.
All right.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.